The forest stretched endlessly, a green and golden labyrinth that seemed to breathe with life. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the mossy ground with patches of warm light. Every rustle of leaves, every distant chirp of crickets, seemed to echo louder in the growing quiet of dusk. Among the tangled roots and ferns, a tiny orange tabby kitten named Luna moved with careful purpose. Luna was no ordinary kitten. Her fur blazed as brightly as a flicker of flame, a sharp contrast to her delicate build. Her wide green eyes were pools of curiosity, and her tiny red scarf, a symbol of love from her human companion, gave her the look of a fearless explorer. She had a knack for finding trouble, but her heart, as small as it was, brimmed with courage and kindness. As she wandered deeper into the forest, the air grew heavier, carrying a strange stillness. Luna paused, her ears twitching at the faintest sound. A soft, sorrowful whimper. It was so quiet she almost dismissed it as a trick of the wind. But there it was again, a cry so full of longing and despair that it made her chest tighten. "Who's there?" Luna whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. The sound pulled at her, tugging her tiny paws forward as she wove through the underbrush. Each step brought her closer to the source, her heart beating faster with a mixture of fear and determination. Finally, she came to a clearing bathed in the gentle glow of twilight. Beneath the gnarled roots of a great oak, she spotted a trembling shape. It was a golden retriever puppy, his fur a soft sunlit hue with a snowy white patch on his chest. He was chubby, his rounded form making him look even smaller against the vastness of the forest. A simple blue collar encircled his neck, a faint reminder of the safety and warmth of home. Wherever that was now. The puppy's brown eyes darted nervously between the trees, his ears twitching at every sound. His small body shivered, not from the cold, but from fear. He let out another whimper, the sound breaking Luna's heart. She hesitated for a moment, her instinct urging caution, but compassion pushed her forward. "Hey," she called softly, her voice a soothing melody in the quiet. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The puppy flinched at first, startled by the sudden voice, but when his eyes met Luna's, something shifted. Her green gaze held no threat, only warmth and reassurance. He sniffled, his voice a quivering whisper. Who are you?" "I'm Luna," she replied, stepping closer. "What's your name?" "Buddy," he said, his tail giving a hesitant wag. His voice wavered, heavy with sadness. I'm lost. I can't find my mom. She was here, and then she wasn't." Luna's heart ached for him. She took another step, her small paw brushing against his trembling form. "It's okay, buddy," she said gently. "You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together." She patted Luna's back. Buddy blinked, a tear escaping from the corner of his eye. Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, a glimmer of hope piercing the shadow of fear that had consumed him. "And yes," said Karina, "we might have been responsible." The forest no longer seemed so menacing with Luna by his side. Together, they stood under the ancient oak, two small souls in a vast, untamed world. The journey ahead would be daunting, but for the first time, neither of them felt truly alone. The stream roared like a beast below them, its frothy waters slamming into jagged rocks with relentless ferocity. The log, aged and gnarled, stretched precariously from one muddy bank to the other, a narrow lifeline above the chaos. Luna was already halfway across, her every movement deliberate and graceful. The sun caught her silver coat, making her shimmer like a phantom, and her red scarf fluttered defiantly in the wind, a stark contrast against the wild backdrop. "Stay steady, buddy," she called back, her voice cutting through the cacophony. It was firm but carried a warmth that only Luna could offer. Buddy, a few steps behind her, was anything but steady. His chocolate-brown fur bristled with nerves, and his ears were pinned back. His paws shuffled along the slippery log, and each step felt like it could be his last. He dared a glance down, instantly regretting it. The sight of the turbulent water spinning and crashing below made his stomach churn, his balance teetering dangerously. "Eyes on me!" Luna shouted, her tone sharper this time. Buddy snapped his gaze forward, locking onto her confident figure. Her tail swayed rhythmically, as though she was carving a path for him to follow. A sudden gust of wind howled through the gorge, making the log tremble. Buddy froze, his claws digging into the wood. Panic surged through him, his breath quickening. I can't," he stammered, his voice barely audible over the water's roar. Luna stopped and turned, her piercing gaze meeting his. "Yes, you can. One paw at a time. Trust yourself." Her words, simple yet resolute, anchored him. With a deep breath, Buddy forced his trembling paw forward. The log creaked ominously, but he pushed on. The spray from the stream misted his fur, the icy droplets biting into him, but he kept moving. Luna didn't turn away. She stood firm, waiting for him, her scarf whipping in the wind like a flag of victory already claimed. Buddy's footing wavered as his paw slipped on the slick wood, his heart lurching as he flailed to regain balance. A bark of alarm escaped him, but before he could panic further, Luna's voice cut through, calm and steady. "Focus, Buddy. You're stronger than this." Gritting his teeth, he planted his paws firmly and continued. Each step felt like a small victory, a triumph over his trembling legs and the fear clawing at his chest. When he was finally within reach, Luna stretched out a paw, her confidence radiating like a beacon. With one last shaky step, Buddy grasped her paw, her strength pulling him to the safety of solid ground. The moment his paws touched the earth, a wave of relief crashed over him, nearly buckling his legs. Luna grinned, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Told you you could do it," she said, her tone light yet full of admiration. Buddy let out a shaky laugh, his tail wagging tentatively. "Yeah, sure. Easy for you to say." She nudged him playfully. "The stream doesn't care how afraid you are, Buddy. But you stared it down and won." Behind them, the log trembled with the force of the wind, a reminder of the challenge they had just overcome. Ahead, the forest beckoned, the path winding into the unknown. But now, as they stepped forward together, the roar of the stream felt like a distant memory, drowned out by the quiet strength they had discovered in each other. The cabin stood silent, an ancient relic swallowed by the forest. Its wooden walls, once strong and proud, sagged under the weight of time, their surfaces smothered in emerald moss and tangled ivy. Rays of sunlight pierced through the dense canopy above, creating a patchwork of golden light and shadow that danced across the weathered boards. The air was thick with the earthy scent of decay and greenery, the quiet hum of the forest broken only by the faint creak of the cabin's warped roof shifting in the breeze. Luna stepped inside first, her sharp silver eyes scanning the dim interior. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, illuminated by shafts of sunlight streaming through the cracks in the wooden planks. Her red scarf swayed slightly as she moved, the only vibrant color in the otherwise muted surroundings. Buddy followed close behind, his chocolate-brown fur brushing against the doorway. His ears twitched as they adjusted to the sudden quiet, his paws crunching softly against the layer of dust blanketing the floor. At the heart of the cabin lay the object that had drawn them in, a torn scarf. Its once vivid pattern, a swirl of deep blues and golds, was now faded, the edges frayed and worn by time. Yet, as a ray of sunlight hit it, the fabric seemed to come alive, glowing faintly with the soft, otherworldly light. The glow was subtle, like the last embers of a dying fire, but it filled the small room with an aura that was both comforting and mysterious. Luna crouched down beside the scarf, her paws brushing against the dusty floor as she examined it closely. Her silver fur gleamed in the light, and her expression was a mixture of wonder and determination. "It's beautiful," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Buddy stood a step back, his amber eyes wide as he stared at the glowing fabric. "It looks alive," he said hesitantly. His tail flicked nervously, but there was an undeniable curiosity in his gaze. "It's not just a scarf," Luna replied, her tone laced with intrigue. She reached out, her paw hovering over the fabric as if drawn to it by an unseen force. The light seemed to respond, growing slightly brighter as her paw neared. Buddy tilted his head, his ears perking up. "Do you think it's—" He trailed off, his voice faltering. "Something special?" "I think it might be," Luna finished for him, her eyes never leaving the scarf. She gently touched it, and a ripple of light spread across the fabric, like moonlight dancing on water. The glow illuminated their faces, casting an ethereal sheen that reflected the wonder in their eyes. The cabin, despite its decrepit state, felt alive in that moment. The dusty floor and cobwebbed corners seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the scarf and the two figures standing over it. The air grew still, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Buddy's voice broke the silence, soft and unsure. "What do we do with it?" Luna straightened, her red scarf fluttering slightly as she stepped back. "We find out where it came from, and why it was left here." Her words were steady, but her gaze betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. Was this discovery a blessing or a challenge? I bent down next to Jessica and saw her eyes search the ground in front of Razor's feet. As they exchanged a glance, the mix of hope and intrigue on their faces was unmistakable. Whatever lay ahead, they knew this scarf was more than a forgotten relic. It was a key to something bigger, something that had waited for them to find it in this hidden, forgotten corner of the world. The forest raged with the fury of the storm. Rain poured in unrelenting sheets, drenching the ground until it was a mire of mud and fallen leaves. The night sky flashed with brilliant streaks of lightning, momentarily turning the world stark white before plunging it back into suffocating darkness. Thunder cracked like the heavens splitting open, its echoes rolling endlessly through the dense trees. In the heart of a rain-soaked clearing, Luna crouched low, her sleek silver fur plastered against her frame. Her red scarf clung to her neck, heavy with rain, but it still seemed defiant, a streak of bold color in the oppressive gloom. Her eyes, sharp and determined, darted from one glowing figure to the next. Around her, a pack of wolves moved like shadows given form, their glowing eyes cutting through the downpour. Buddy huddled behind her, his chocolate-brown coat matted with mud and trembling from a mix of cold and fear. His normally bright amber eyes were wide, darting between the circling predators. Every now and then he glanced at Luna, searching for reassurance, and finding it in the unwavering strength of her stance. The wolves closed in slowly, their movements synchronized and deliberate. Their wet fur gleamed faintly in the light of a distant lightning flash, and their growls vibrated low and menacing, almost drowned out by the roar of the storm. "Stay close to me," Luna said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Despite the tension in her posture, her tone was steady, almost calming. Her tail flicked as she positioned herself firmly between Buddy and the pack, her sharp eyes scanning for an opening, a chance to turn the odds. Buddy swallowed hard, his paws sinking into the mud as he pressed himself lower. "Luna, they're everywhere," he stammered, his voice barely audible above the storm. "I see them," she replied, her ears flicking back briefly before snapping forward. Another flash of lightning lit up the clearing, and for a heartbeat, the scene was frozen in stark clarity. The gleaming fangs of the wolves, their eyes burning with predatory hunger, Luna's defiant crouch, her muscles coiled like a spring, and Buddy's mud-covered form trembling behind her, his small frame dwarfed by the looming shapes of their attackers. The largest wolf, its glowing eyes like twin embers, stepped forward, its movements fluid and commanding. It growled, low and guttural, the sound cutting through the storm like a blade. The rest of the pack paused, their snarls softening into an eerie silence as they awaited their leader's signal. Luna bared her teeth, a low growl rumbling from her chest. She didn't retreat, her silver fur bristling despite being soaked. Her stance was a challenge, a warning that she would fight with everything she had. Buddy's breath hitched as the pack shifted closer, their glowing eyes narrowing. The storm seemed to intensify, the rain pounding harder and the wind howling through the trees. He looked up at Luna, his voice trembling. "What do we do now?" "Oh." Luna didn't take her eyes off the wolves. "We don't give them what they want," she said firmly. Another flash of lightning illuminated her face. Her expression was fierce, unyielding. "Stay behind me, no matter what." The lead wolf lunged suddenly, its movements a blur in the rain. Luna sprang to meet it, her claws slicing through the air as she collided with the predator mid-leap. The two tumbled into the mud, a whirl of snarling fury, as the rest of the pack surged forward. Buddy let out a cry, but before he could move, a stray bolt of lightning struck a nearby tree, splitting it in half with a deafening crack. The flash blinded the clearing momentarily, the shockwave forcing the wolves to scatter. He tried to call, then realized that nothing would come from the audio amplification, except a seemingly faint. Luna was on her paws in an instant, mud streaked across her fur, her chest heaving as she growled fiercely at the pack. The wolves hesitated, their glowing eyes darting between Luna and the fallen tree. They regrouped, circling once more, but the fire in Luna's eyes held them at bay for just a moment longer. Buddy scrambled to his feet, his voice trembling but determined. "Luna, I'm not leaving you." Luna didn't look back, her focus unrelenting. "I don't need you to leave, I need you to be ready." The wolves howled in unison, their glowing eyes gleaming brighter in the rain-soaked darkness. The storm continued to rage around them, but in the clearing, the tension was sharper than any thunderclap, the moment poised on a knife's edge. The meadow stretched wide under the warmth of the afternoon sun, a sea of tall grass swaying gently in the breeze. Wildflowers dotted the landscape, their vibrant colors dancing in the golden light. The air was filled with the soft hum of bees and the occasional chirp of birds, a symphony of life that painted the meadow with a sense of peace and renewal. At the heart of it all, Buddy dashed through the grass, his chocolate-brown fur gleaming in the sunlight. The mud and fear of their earlier trials were long gone, replaced by a joy so pure it seemed to radiate from him. His tail wagged furiously, a blur of excitement as his paws barely seemed to touch the ground. His amber eyes sparkled, reflecting the golden hues of the meadow as he ran with all his might. Ahead of him stood Bella, her figure glowing in the sunlight. Her golden fur shimmered like honey, a few shades darker than Buddy's, and her kind eyes shone with warmth and love. The floral-matted bandana around her neck fluttered slightly in the breeze, its soft pastel colors complementing the vibrant meadow around her. She stood with her front paws slightly outstretched, her tail wagging gently, her expression a mixture of relief, happiness, and overwhelming affection. "Buddy!" Bella called, her voice carrying across the meadow, filled with emotion. "Mom!" Buddy cried back, his voice cracking with excitement as he closed the distance between them. Luna sat nearby, a slight distance from the reunion, her silver fur catching the light like a mirror of the sun itself. Her red scarf rested lightly against her neck, no longer weighed down by rain or mud. She watched Buddy with a quiet pride, her expression steady but tinged with a bittersweet softness. Buddy leapt the final few steps, bounding into Bella's embrace. She caught him, pulling him close as her nose nudged into his fur, her soft whimpers of relief mingling with his excited barks. He buried his face in her shoulder, his tail wagging so hard it sent ripples through the grass around them. "I missed you so much," Buddy murmured, his voice muffled as he pressed into her golden coat. Bella pulled back just enough to look at him, her kind eyes shimmering with tears. "And I missed you, my little explorer," she said, her voice warm and full of love. She gently licked his forehead, her touch as tender as the sunlight on his fur. Luna's gaze softened as she watched the scene unfold, her chest rising and falling with a deep breath. She didn't move, content to let the moment belong to them. Her proud yet bittersweet expression spoke volumes, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond Buddy shared with Bella, and perhaps a flicker of sadness at the thought that her own journey with him might now come to an end. A man stepped back from the table. He wiped his face again, licked his lips, and put out his hand. Bella turned her head to look at Luna, her smile widening. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying easily across the sunlit meadow, "for bringing him home." Luna dipped her head slightly, a small smile gracing her lips. "He found his way back," she replied softly. "I just helped him along." Buddy looked back at Luna, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You're not going anywhere, are you, Luna?" he asked, his voice tinged with both hope and uncertainty. Luna chuckled lightly, her tail swaying behind her. "I'll always be around, Buddy," she said, her tone reassuring but non-committal. "You've got what you need now. And you've got her." Bella nuzzled Buddy again, her voice gentle. "You've made a wonderful friend, haven't you?" Buddy turned back to his mother, his tail wagging again as he pressed close to her. "Yeah," he said, his voice full of warmth. The best." As the sun dipped slightly lower, casting the meadow in even softer golden hues, the reunion continued, filled with laughter, nuzzles, and the quiet joy of a family restored. Luna sat quietly nearby, a calm observer, her presence as steady and reliable as ever, a quiet guardian in the golden light. True friendship means guiding others through their darkest moments, even when the journey is difficult. And when the time comes to let go, it's a reminder that love and kindness leave lasting strength in those we help.